I dropped out of high school. I was 17, and I felt that I wanted to get out of school, get a job, and grow up. Well, idle minds, idle hands lead to devilish things. Several of the guys that I used to run around with started drinking very heavy. And they would say, well, where can we get some more booze at? Well, the liquor store's down here. Let's break into it after it closes tonight. And see, that was not my way of doing things. And so about 3 months after I dropped out of school, I decided to go in the military. I was joining the Army to travel, not to go to war. War didn't seem possible with the Second World War just ending peacetime. Nobody wanted to mess with the United States. So I felt it would be for a 3-year enlistment. It didn't turn out that way. I finished basic training and I ended up going to Japan. I was there in June. I ended up replacing some of the 24th Infantry Regiment. Now, the 24th Infantry Regiment was called the Buffalo Soldiers. They were all African Americans except for officers who were white. The war started June 25th, 1950, and our regiment was the first regiment to go to Korea. We were told it was a police action. I asked a sergeant, I said, what's a police action? He said, oh, we'll take our nightsticks and go over there and crack a few heads and we'll be back in a week. So I said, well, let's go. But it wasn't that way. We landed in Pusan. We got on trucks and started up the dirt road. There was no paved roads in Korea at that time. We were almost to Seoul, probably 60, 70, 80 miles south of Seoul when our convoy was hit. When the bullets started flying, I said to my platoon sergeant, I said, what the hell is this? Is this a police action? He said, no, son. He was a Second World War veteran. He said, no, son, this is war. And he said, you better keep your damn head down or you're going to be dead. That first raid, we lost about 70 men. And the first guy I saw killed was a fellow that I took boot camp with. He had a very froggish voice, so we called him Frogman. And he was the very first one I saw killed, and it just changes your attitude. And you want to cry until somebody says, you don't cry. He says, you'll be crying the rest of your fucking life, so dry it up and let's go. And so you take a deep breath, you swallow hard, and you don't know how to cry. And it stays with you. Combat troops are not made. You make it in combat. That's how you know what you have to do. And survival becomes very strong within you. You're trained to overtake fear. You're trained to react to the situations in front of you, not to react to fear. But North Koreans wanted Korea. Their objective was all of Korea by September 1st. So they were hitting us very hard, and we lost everybody but 38 men out of 250. But the American Army does not retreat, it makes strategic withdrawals. We withdrew back down to Yecheon, and we got reinforcements. We had come back to full combat strength in September, October, and we had annihilated the North Korean Army. We sat there for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then we got orders to go north up to the Yalu River, which separates China and Korea. Well, the Chinese had already infiltrated and was waiting for us. And they let us come through. And on November the 27th, we got hit with everything but the kitchen stove. We ended up losing about 100 to about 130 men. We were caught on a little knoll. We were out of ammunition. I had, I think, a clip left, and some people had 4 or 5 rounds. And so the company commander had been hit, and he said, I want all platoon leaders and squad leaders to come forward. And he says, I know we're down to a few men. He said, but I want to know what the men want to do. Do they want to fight out or do what? Surrender. He said, bring me the word back. Out of a 12-man squad, there was only about 6 of us left. And I said, okay, I was the squad leader. I went back and they all agreed to surrender. Because I really don't know how we could have fought any longer. So he and another sergeant, first sergeant, took a white handkerchief and put it on a stick and walked out. Sergeant came back and says, we've got a half hour to surrender. We marched for 1st of December till the 24th of December. Every night we marched, and the temperature started getting harder and colder, and we ended up with average temperatures of 50 to 55 below zero. And we all had summer clothes. So a lot of guys froze to death, a lot of guys starved to death, a lot of guys died from wounds. But when we reached the prison camps, the Chinese turned us over to the North Koreans. And that's when all hell broke loose. The North Koreans didn't give a damn if you lived or died. And that's when the death rate started climbing. And if you've ever gone to a Chinese or an Asian restaurant, you know, their little bowls, you got one of those a day, cracked corn. So a lot of guys died from dysentery, which was very bloody dysentery. It just devastated guys. I was 180 pounds, and I went down to about 90 pounds. I don't know why I survived. I just say the good Lord up there was not ready for me. That's the only thing I can say. Well, approximately 8,101 prisoners taken, and 3,000 came back alive. As the summer of 1951 came in, the Chinese realized that there weren't going to be very many prisoners left because the North Koreans couldn't feed us, they didn't have any blankets, they didn't have anything. So the Chinese started taking over the camps. And more of the physical punishment came under the Chinese. But the Chinese were very intelligent. Say you tried to escape and you got captured. They would not physically punish you. They would come and find somebody in the building you stayed in who was well liked by everybody and physically punish him. Why? Psychologically, it hurt everybody in there. So we started policing ourselves. Like the one time 4 guys escaped, they were gone overnight and captured the next day and come in, and they took the one guy out of the compound he was in, very well liked person, tied him on a tripod and threw cold water on him until he froze to death. A couple of other guys did the same thing. So they threw him in a pit and put rats in there and let the rats eat them. And you had to stand there and watch it. So we stopped trying to escape. We thought the war was still going on, and August the 6th, 1953, they said the war is over, and within a day or two you'll be going home. On August the 8th, I crossed the debarkation line, bridge of no return they called it. And to me that was probably the greatest day of my life. Great big old American flag, and I looked up at it, it was blowing in the wind, and tears come up in my eyes. Oh, I just couldn't believe it. The general said, "Welcome home." I don't think I remember the other words after that because I was just looking at that flag. It was the prettiest thing I'd ever seen. When I first got home, I was troubled. First thing my mother said to me, after she gave me a big hug and a kiss, we talked, and she says, "You're not the nice young man that left here." And I said, "What do you mean, Mother?" She said exactly what I said. And that's all she said. It took me a long time to understand what she meant, because I was very quiet, I was very pleasant. Now I was very gruff, tough, didn't need anybody. I slept 1 hour a night. I smoked 5.5 packs of cigarettes a day, and all I did was pace. And I drank quite heavy, because that was the easiest way for me to ease my pain. I was 28, 29 when I met my wife, and we got married and we had children. But I would not get very close to my kids because I was afraid something could happen to them and I'd be hurt. My wife and kids had never heard me say I killed somebody during the war, because I always felt they would hate me for killing people. You go to church and thou shalt not kill and thou shalt not kill, but yet I had killed. And how are you going to tell your kids, yeah, I kill people and I'm a nice guy? So I felt lonely, I felt cast out. You know, I used to go down by the river and just sit there and say, you know, would it be worth just getting the hell out of this world? Committing suicide. Finally, I really lost it. I didn't know where in the hell I was at or anything else. And I dropped a friend of mine off who was in the 24th with me. Dropped him off in Lansing. When I got to M52, I was totally lost. I was totally lost. Came down onto M52 and I said, you know, if I had a gun, I'd shoot myself. But I didn't. And I don't know how I got home. I'm going to be honest with you. I walked in the house and my wife looked at me and she said, what's wrong? I said, you know, I got lost. I said, I don't know how I got home. I said, but if I had a gun, I'd have shot myself. And that's when she called the VA and I started going over for PTSD, and that's what the doctor said it was. I was depressed and I didn't realize it. Military teaches you well how to kill, but they don't teach you how to not kill. And what I mean by that, the whole demeanor of the military is to strip you of your personality, strip you of who you are, and make you who they want you to be. How do you come back to being who you should be? And they don't do anything to do that, even today. I'm on the advisory board in Washington, D.C., which is a mandate by Congress. And we work under the Secretary of Veteran Affairs. And our main objective is to find former prisoners of war, let them know that they have special provisions coming to them. They have special presumptive illnesses coming to them. And I think it's helped. But with help in going through PTSD, I understand now that I had to kill to stay alive. It wasn't something I chose to do. It was something I had to do. And I have been able to come to terms with looking at Korea because I've been back to Korea twice, the wife and I. And I see a country that we help stay free with a democracy. People say, well, would you do it again? I say, yes, I would. It was worth it. So I don't know what the true answer is. I'm not a politician. I'm not a man who advocates war or not to advocate it. But one thing I'd like people to understand, stop counting who wins. Nobody wins. You may stop the enemy. You may conquer the enemy. But when those guys come home, they've got problems. They've got deep problems. So who has won? We've all lost.